Hey there, Cancer. How are you doing? Happy new moon in your own sign, in the sign of Cancer. So today is the day of the new moon. And this isn't so much a usual sort of fluffy and cozy new moon in Cancer like we might usually have. This one is quite interesting. There's a lot of truth coming up. It's bubbling up. It's wanting to be revealed. And you can see this in terms of the fact that we've got asteroid chaos and also asteroid truth in alignment with this new moon in Cancer. This is an interesting one. You know, there's a lot of instability around this time astrologically. So I do think this is a little bit more full moony than usual. Now, in this video, I'm going to go from the new moon in your sign right the way through to the really heavy and imposing full moon in Capricorn on the 10th of July. This particular full moon, I think, is really asking us to work harder, be more efficient, and it's really testing our resiliency. For instance, it's in a T-square. You know, the sun and the moon are in a square with Chiron, and we're going to be feeling a little bit unsteady in our directions around that time. But here's the big noise, and that is that Uranus is changing signs on the 7th of July. Now, Uranus has an 84-year cycle. It spends approximately 7 years in each sign. It goes in and then it pops back out and then it goes back in again permanently. And so Uranus has been in the sign of Taurus since 2018 and then permanently since March 2019. And now he's about to move into the sign of Gemini, where he's going to be there until 2032 when he moves into Cancer. So he is one of these like generational planets, and he represents liberty, freedom, so many different things. And so what I'm going to be doing is looking at your forecast for the next 2 weeks ahead, but also being mindful of his changes. So yes, this is a very big time. And so there's 3 questions I'm really hoping to answer throughout this forecast. And the first one is, how are you shattering the limits around you right now? How are you breaking through? How are you also making empowered decisions and choices for yourself? And where might they show up? And then the final one is, how are you building foundations for a brighter future for yourself? And so I think if we can answer these 3 questions in the short forecast, hopefully that will help you in the next 2 weeks ahead. If you're new to this channel, hi, my name's Louisa Tanner-Munson. And, you know, the reason I do this is I think because I want some clarity and I want to feel that there are choices in my life. Sorry, I've got a 10-year-old kitten running around my office. I was hoping to introduce you to him. He's one of my children's. All of my children have got one kitten each, and this one is my youngest son's kitten, and it's been named Asteroid Destroyer. It's a girl as well. Come here. Come on. Whoop. Here you go. This is Asteroid Destroyer's first debut moment on YouTube. What do you think about this? Oh, hello. Oh, kitten cuddles are so cute. So yes, yeah, the hope here is that this forecast will give you a sense of ease and freedom and a little sense of that life is okay, even though there's a lot of change going on. I want to show you as well that there's a lot of choices and also support for you on this channel, but also everywhere really. First of all, I've got a series of shows that might be quite helpful. So I'm releasing this one today. This one called All Signs, the Radical Reclaim. This is a deeper dive of this version, but for all signs. And so if you are the kind of person that likes to know a little bit more, I mean, a lot more, in fact, then you can deep dive into that. I've also recently released my Jupiter in Cancer video because, you know, Jupiter is pretty big at this time, especially in the sign of Cancer. And I've also got a playlist called Uranus Through the Houses. If you know where Uranus is in your birth chart, you can check out a meaning for that. There's an interpretation and also an interpretation about where it is in your chart right now as well. I did this quite a long time ago. You can see I look a little younger there. But hopefully it will still be very helpful. So anyway, I'm going to look at 2 particular charts today, the new moon and also the full moon. But before I bring those up, I just want to say thank you to everybody that supports this channel, because without you, I really probably might have given up by now. So I really appreciate you. You keep me going. And yeah, that's just fantastic. I'm full of gratitude. So that's not the slide I needed. 1 second. What's going on here? But this is the slide I wanted. Sorry, that was a slide from my membership forecast. But this This is the new moon in Cancer from your Cancerian perspective. I should also say, I design these with a whole sign Western tropical model. If you are somebody who uses Placidus, and so, I use Placidus myself. And so with Placidus in your first house, you'll probably have Cancer and then Leo. For me, I've got my ascendant in the sign of Scorpio, but a little bit of Sagittarius comes into my first house as well. So what I would recommend is if you use Placidus when you're looking at your chart, when you're doing your own research, you might also find Cancer and Leo. The two forecasts give you a really good coverage. If you're watching this because you've got Cancer Sun, I hear from lots of people that listen to their sun sign and they also find it useful. So hopefully that's helpful. Well, that kitten named Asteroid Destroyer is also a room destroyer. Anyway, this new moon is really, really strong. As you can see, it's in your first house, and obviously there's a lot of meanings attached to that. Okay, so I've got a different kit in my arms now. So this new moon, it's in a really, really strong place. So it's right at the beginning. It's right in your first house. It's also in a conjunction with Jupiter that I've already mentioned. Jupiter going into the sign of Cancer, I think is a really, really big deal for you to have to have Jupiter in your first house. Wherever Jupiter goes, he is making things larger than life, really increasing the amount of energy coming in. And so even though this Jupiter is so close to the sun and could be completely overwhelmed by the sun's rays, because Jupiter is really strong in the sign of Cancer and in the first house, I still think the expansive energy of this new moon, I think his expansive energy is affecting the new moon. It's a really strong new moon. Out of all the moons in this year ahead, I would say this is the absolute strongest one for you with your Cancer rising. Now, what does this mean? This means that this particular new moon is all about your emerging personality, your emerging persona. This is about you becoming more of who you have believed yourself to be. And this is also about kind of taking down some of the barriers that you put around yourself. With a Cancer energy, it can be very protective. And so Jupiter doesn't give a monkey's about that. Jupiter really wants to lower those. And so I really think that's one of the things that you might be shattering about yourself right now, is you're letting down some boundaries safely and securely, but you're letting them go. You're giving it a chance. If we go through to, you'll see the moon's going to whiz over to this side of the chart in a second. So this is where the full moon is going to be. At this time, you're experiencing yourself and experiencing the evolution of Jupiter in your first house. But this time you're experiencing it through the heightened emotions of the people around you. So you might find, and you could say that this journey, this 2-week journey, is about you experiencing yourself from your own desires for evolution and growth to what happens when other people come back and come into judgment or come in to appreciate you. The full moon here, around the time of the full moon, especially when it's in the 7th house, often we feel that the people around us are hyper emotional, like they are picking up on all sorts of things, and they are getting quite emotional, most likely because you're going through so many changes yourself. That is even more emphasized with Jupiter in your first house currently. So I really think you are like kind of breaking down the ideas of who you are. Jupiter only comes in this part of your chart every 12 years. So this could be long overdue, but to me, this is, you are in the process of reinvigorating your persona and what you're about and what life means to you. And because of that, and because you're doing it so strongly, there's a little, maybe not backlash, but people are a little bit unsteady and a little bit uncertain themselves. Now, we've also got Neptune going into retrograde, and Venus going into Gemini, and also Uranus going into Gemini. And I really want to touch on all of those different aspects, because the Uranus one, whilst I think it's more important on the 7th, it's a much bigger energy. We've got a really interesting lead up. So I think this first week in particular is kind of, I don't want to say business as usual, but, Mercury is quite helpful. He's in the Second house, he's making moves from the 26th. He's making beautiful connections earlier in this 2-week forecast to Uranus, to Saturn, and also to Neptune. He is also in an opposition with Pluto that's going to really raise your energy a lot. But to me, it feels like in this 2-week forecast, there's a lot going on in the first 3 days. And then there's a bit of a gap. And then the 4th to the 7th is super intense. So if you see here, you've got Venus and Uranus in the 11th. By the time we come to the end of this forecast period, both of them have moved into the 12th. So I want to pace you through that. So on the 4th, Venus has got closer and closer and closer to Uranus. They're both in the last degree, at 29 degrees in the sign of Uranus. In the sign of Taurus. Here, with Venus and Uranus coming together, there's this sense of connection, but surprising connection. There is also a sense of flow, but it's a surprising sense of flow. Uranus is surprising, shocking, enlivening. It is awakening. And Venus is all about connection, flow, abundance, generosity, kindness, compassion. So there is this kind of surprising new flow of energy. And this could be really helping you. Venus is a beneficial planet in astrology. And so as these two come together, there is this new promise, but there's also the closing down of the adventure that you've been on with friends. And friends of friends and networks over the last 7 years. So since Uranus has been in the sign of Taurus, he's been really giving you a bit of a workout in this part of your chart. Most likely the kinds of people that you've had in your life have really dramatically changed. And most likely you've also noticed that they've become a lot more unreliable. Oh my God. Okay, I'm not going to bring any more cats in. He's okay. So they've become a lot more, unreliable. You've been dealing with people who are wild cards for a long time. This particular moment at the end of Taurus is really showing you that the time of wild cards has kind of run its course. And the reason it's run its course is because you've learned so many skills along the way to deal with people who are unusual, deal with people who are bringing new and exciting things to the table. You've done it so much, you don't need to do it anymore. And the next part of the evolution is as Uranus comes into the 12th house. And this is really getting you to open up to all new levels of information, lots of channeling, lots of really surprising stuff from the depths of your unconscious mind. This is the moment in time when you're most likely to realize that you're part of some kind of collective field of energy, or that we're all one. This is likely to kind of really change how you see the world in its entirety. Now, with this ongoing conjunction between Venus and Uranus, there are so many lovely opportunities to connect in and feel connected across time and space. If you know someone who's passed away, or if you feel connected to love, to God, to universe, to creatures, whatever it is, it's bringing up these lovely, lovely feelings. It may also bring up people from your childhood, from your past. So this is quite an interesting thing. And whilst this is also happening, you've also got Neptune going retrograde. Now, he made his home in the 10th house earlier this year, at the end of March, I think March the 30th. And he's nipping back into Pisces. He's not going to get there for a while, but he's starting his journey back into Pisces. And then next January, he's going to be back here in Aries again. To me, what this is suggesting is the promise of this new sort of empathic, values-led work focus, and your desires to be like, I don't know, upstanding, futuristic, kind and compassionate, philanthropic, maybe, whatever it is that you're wanting to bring into your career, into your legacy, into your destiny. There's a change, there's a little bit more information that needs to come forwards. And so as Neptune is going backwards, going retrograde, there's a much deeper dive. There's going to be some hidden truths that are going to come out over the next 5 months. And it's likely to break down some of your false perceptions about what you want to do for your lifetime, where you're going with your career. So it's interesting, isn't it, that Neptune is doing a deeper dive about your kind of material essence and your material purpose here, at the same time that Uranus is coming into the 12th house, when you're about to learn more about yourself. So if I tie this all together again, I've already said, you're shattering limits right now, because you're realizing you're a much bigger person than you'd given yourself credit for. And other people are helping you to shatter those limits as well by seeing their reactions. How are you making empowered choices? Well, right now, I would absolutely recommend that your empowered choices is some kind of spiritual practice, some way that you're able to really skim underneath your surface values and go to a place where you maybe see your self-sabotage come up, and really look at those and work out where they've come from and whether they're even serving a purpose. I think self-sabotage it always has a purpose to keep you kind of safe, but it's always come from not necessarily a bad decision, but a decision that was formed at a time when you're under stress. And so, these self-sabotages are not really reflecting the true reality of what's going on. So I think this, your empowered choices right now might be to go deeper into your existence. Uranus coming into the 12th is absolutely going to be looking at your like the unconscious mind and all the inner programs that are going on. I mean, this is a time of revelation for you. You're going to be having these revelations about yourself, and all it takes is a little prod, a little lift up under the carpet. You don't have to go too deep to even get there. They're just there, really ripe for the picking. So I do see that as a more long-term effect. And then how are you building foundations for a brighter future? Well, that's not so easy to see right now, not because you're not doing anything brighter right now, but I really think with the planets dancing in between these signs and these signs up here, I think it's really difficult to exactly know how you're building foundations for your future. But what I would say, I guess the best way you could be building foundations right now is just by going into trust and trusting that right now there's more of an inward journey for you, because there's just to me, you're in a place of testing. You're in this place of testing your new identity, testing your new ideas. And I think you're going to go through so many changes quite quickly over this next 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, really until February of next year, when both Saturn and Neptune are coming direct. And then even at the end of April, when finally Uranus comes into here, the 10th and the 11th house, the 10th here and the 12th houses are really showing you a lot about your unconscious programming and how that directs your self, like your journey, your what's the word? Your mission and purpose. So I think there's something much deeper coming up. And of course there is, because you're a Cancer, and, still waters run real deep with you, so it's not going to just be sort of known in an instant necessarily. So I think for you, if you can have the patience and the faith that just by taking some time out and knowing that it's the right thing to do, that in itself is the way to build strong foundations, and really have trust in yourself that what you're doing is right. Because I do think around the time of the full moon, you might get a little bit challenged by people who love you, because they're seeing you going through this very deep reflective process. And of course, it's quite normal, isn't it, to get a little concerned when you're seeing changes in your loved ones and you can't understand them. I totally get that perspective. So I'm going to leave that there. I hope that was helpful. Now, there's a lot of deeper stuff that can be spoken about. I've already recorded my romance forecasts using this information for Cancerians, and also my career and mission-based forecasts. And if that's something that you like, if you like my vibe, and I don't always have kittens running around either, but I just felt like bringing them in. But I've got a membership. You get fortnightly relationship forecasts and fortnightly career and ambition forecasts. I also do not one now. I actually do 2 complimentary hangouts every other week, where we talk about all sorts of interesting stuff about our birth charts, and we bring our charts in, and via Zoom, there's a really lovely session that evolves, and it's not that tightly structured. We just see where it goes. But there are some beautiful sort of things that we've investigated. We've been looking at patterns in our birth charts and how they relate to other people, the shapes of our birth charts and what they might mean, transactional analysis, which is, I think, really it's fascinating looking at the parent, adult, child archetypes that arise within our birth charts. We've also been looking at Saturn in Aries, Jupiter in Cancer, Venus retrograde. Obviously, that's a while back now. And we're also every other Tuesday now looking at the full moon and new moon ceremonies with shaman Whitney Mullings. So there's a lot going on. You're very, very welcome to join us. And yeah, if you want to know more about it, it's all down below in the description fields. Also, I've got a little link in my description box. So if you want to ask 5 free questions of a new service, a new WhatsApp-based service that is being designed, it's called Astronex. That's also below as well. So anyway, have a fabulous 2-week period. Apologies for my 2 kittens that I brought in and and they sort of destroyed things a little bit, but I hope there was something useful there for you. So anyway, lots and lots of love to you, and catch you another time. Bye for now.